high school to, what's going on now. Today we have a guest with us. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm 15 and I go to school with you.
Yeah, so what are we talking about today?
Anxiety and how I've dealt with it and the ways that I cope versus just more of like how I've grown and how it's like impacted me, the different ways that it's impacted me.
Yeah, so jumping right into it, what are some struggles that you face living as a person with anxiety?
One of the biggest struggles for me was just accepting that it is anxiety, because my anxiety presents itself very physically and very rarely in like a mental thoughts in my brain. Like for me, it's not typically the constant worrying as much as it's like I'm sweating, I'm shaking, I don't feel good, I can't think straight. And that was always the struggle, because of course I had grown up having a lot of medical issues. Coming to terms with there's nothing, not that there's nothing we could do, but only so much to a certain extent that we could do as far as medications, treatments, until it was just me pushing through and realizing how to help myself.
Yeah.
Without being able to just pop a pill and everything go away, like it was with my heart condition, with breaking bones and tearing my ACL. Like coming to terms with the fact that this is going to be a lot of mental work and personal growth was one of the hardest things for me.
Yeah. Talking about that, what are some like good coping mechanisms that you've had and that you've learned?
One of mine, growing up, I've always been like a music person. I never play music, can't sing for the life of me, but I've always loved listening to music. So that's like the one thing, no matter what, no matter where, I will always, don't have them on me right now, they're in my coat back in the classroom, but I will always have my AirPods on me, pop them in, turn my music up all the way, and I can pretty much calm myself down. But a lot of times I need to just be able to be alone and just like take my deep breaths. And that's what one of my best friends, May, has taught me, is like when I'm in that situation, it's only going to get worse if I don't get myself out of the situation. So that's like the first thing I do. Whatever is making me freak out, I have to remove myself from it. I just do. Otherwise I will continue to spiral into a panic attack, and those aren't great. Not at all.
Yeah. So, not something that a lot of people really think of, but what are some strengths that you have having anxiety?
I think one of the biggest things is, one, being able, in school specifically, being able to just, I overanalyze things a lot. That comes from my anxiety, perfectionism. I always make sure everything is perfect, planned out to a T, makes things very organized. But another thing that I think is more important as a life skill is, because I have anxiety, depression, it all wrapped into whatever, it helps me connect with other people. Like Abby here, I have been able to help her through some of her own issues by seeing myself be able to overcome a lot of problems and be here today when there were times I didn't think I would be. I feel like that gives me the power to help other people, knowing I've made it through and I know how to get through it. Even though coping skills don't work for everybody. Everybody's different. You got to do what works for you.
Yeah.
But I can help her find her coping skills and give her somebody to talk to and be there. And biggest thing for me was always having somebody that understood it. And it took me forever to find someone who genuinely understood what I was going through without being like, yeah, no, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that is who I found in May.
Yeah.
Very glad I did, because I don't know if I'd be here if it wasn't for her.
Yeah, that's such a big, important thing, especially with people dealing with anxiety or any other mental disorders, is being able to reclaim it and find power in it. And I genuinely, I think it's such a beautiful thing when people learn how to do that. And having a really good support group definitely helps with that. Like, I would not be here today if it wasn't for my support group.
Yes.
Like, so many people, completely, yeah, it's such an important thing. What do you feel like, I know that you kind of talked about this earlier, but what do you feel physically in your body when you're having like really bad anxiety or even like an anxiety attack, a panic attack?
So my panic attacks, for the longest time, I was convinced that there was something physically wrong with me, because obviously I have ADHD, so there's thoughts running through my mind 24/7, never catch a break. So that was something that was never like different for me versus like normal everyday life versus when I'm having a panic attack. So I could never differentiate the two. So for me, I feel everything physically. So my stomach will start hurting, I'll start to get lightheaded and dizzy, I get really hot, my hands start shaking, and it's just not a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's just like overall feeling like crap. And there have been a few times where it's gotten bad enough to the point where like I've started to like lose it and like almost pass out and just had to like lay down there. It happens, but can't always control it, but you can do your best to help yourself. That's what I've learned.
Yeah. So I know that you're a really big athlete, especially at Valley Park, involved with all of the things. Very impressive.
Thank you.
How has being an athlete kind of affected or impacted your anxiety, or how has your anxiety affected it?
In every way imaginable. Like it's the same way like with you for theater. How does anxiety impact it for you? So for me, I've always been an overachiever. Always been my issue. I've always been a perfectionist. So that carries into how I play in sports. I've never really had the confidence that I needed in sports. And it kind of, here at Valley Park, it kind of depends on what you're playing, who you're with, the people you're around. But I know with my softball team that I play with over the summer, they've helped me so much. My coaches, they are the most amazing people in the world. They've helped me through so much, being injured for the last season and not being able to play at all. That shot my confidence. I was like, why am I even here? Why? There's no point. This is what I strive to do every day. Why am I here? There's no reason. But they stuck by my side and were like, we love you. You are a part of this team. You're a part of this family. That is why we want you here every day. And I did. And I showed up. And hopefully I'll be back in March.
Yeah.
But I think joining that team has really helped me.
Yeah.
So much.
So I know that you were a gifted kid.
I was a gifted kid. We were gifted kids together.
Do you think that being a gifted kid has any correlation with anxiety or mental health or anything, like not just for you, but like?
Oh, 100%. I don't know if there was a single kid in that class that wasn't on Adderall or should have been.
Yeah.
But I definitely, because the way I see it, you could have been a perfectly normal kid, but already known the ABCs going into kindergarten, and they say that you're gifted. Immediately, that is going to give you some sense of perfectionism. Like, oh, I'm held to this higher standard. I need to keep up at this higher standard. Don't even get me started on burnout, because from 8th grade, I was so done, and I still am. We're working on that one, though. We're getting my attendance back up. But I think they go hand in hand, because once, at the age of 5 years old, I was taken from my kindergarten classroom and said, you're special, you get to go here. And I had to keep up this certain level of thinking outside of the box, being super creative. I'm not saying, oh, I was dumber than a box of rocks and didn't belong in there. I think I definitely did, because I do, like, being in regular pace classes now, I don't get the stimulation I need to be focused. Those are the classes that I tend to fall behind in, because I can't keep my brain focused and just on task. But in my more upbeat classes where we're doing stuff nonstop and I can ask questions 24/7, like in history, Mr. Wood, he lets me like ask a question, and sometimes I'm challenging his opinions and his views and how he's thinking, but we'll have like this back and forth, just looking at all the different sides of it. And he's not like saying, oh, you're wrong, be quiet, I need to teach the whole class. He'll more focus on, well, that was a good question. Like, I'm glad you asked that. And so I do think that, like, there's a good point in having gifted programs for kids who do think outside of the box and are special, but also when you have a certain level of understanding, like for me, I'm a very emotionally mature person, and I always have been from a young age. Plenty of childhood trauma. But that was always one of my biggest issues, is that I was like, they were always right here as far as like understanding emotions and the way people work mentally. And I was like, I understood the way people worked and why they did things, like on the sociology side of things. I understood more than the people my age did and the people I was friends with and the people I grew up with. That's why we've grown apart. But
Yeah.
it's more of like, yes, I do. Back to the question, I think gifted kids and mental illnesses, and not only just mental illnesses, but like things that aren't, because like you have this idea of every high school student, every middle school student, every student is this certain way and they fit into this certain category. And then obviously they don't. And it tends trying to push those children who really don't fit into that category. That's where the mental illness starts to brew. And when you learn things that at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old that you wouldn't be learning until you're in high school, that can really impact the way you see the world and everything. So I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah. And on that note too of, you know, like childhood and everything like that in middle school, elementary, how did anxiety like impact your childhood? Like, and
So
kind of like,
much.
yeah.
So much. And like, ever since I've known I've had bad anxiety, because my mother had very bad anxiety, my grandma did, my aunt does, all the women in my family do. It has always impacted me from school. I remember being in first grade and going to Miss Weirick's first grade class, and she had to go and drag me out of the car because I was crying because I just didn't want to go to school because I didn't like school. And that's something I still work on a lot in therapy, is why do I not like school? Because still to this day, I dread getting up and going to school. School, I just associate it with something very bad, and I don't know why. And I still can't get to the root of it, but hopefully one day I'll figure it out and be able to enjoy school. But anxiety has always just been like something in my life that's made everything a little bit more difficult, because where kids will be like, oh yeah, no, that's fine, I'll have to go back and double check it. Also another thing is I always need an answer to something. I've never been a just like go with the flow kind of person. Like I need to have, like, every question I have needs answers. I'll be laying in my bed late at night, can't turn my brain off, and I'm thinking, and I'm trying to go to bed because I gotta go to school in the morning. But I think of something, I have to go look it up on my phone because I need to know. And so that was always a big thing, is like I could never have a question go unanswered. I always had to find it out. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to stop thinking about it. And that on top of all the other worrying, because I've always obviously wanted to have good grades, and keeping my grades high went very hand in hand with my anxiety. And that was something last year especially that got to me a lot, and it became a very tough time, and it was not good for anyone. For me, my friends, my family, my teachers. I was not in the greatest headspace when I just had to have there was a lot of anxiety with me failing, even though I was a solid A student. And so that's really always affected me, but we're working on it.
Yeah. So what kind of like advice do you have for people in relationships or friends or parents or siblings of people who have chronic anxiety?
Talk about it. Just talk about it, because that's the one thing is I learned is that a lot of people sometimes don't understand it. And people can have anxiety but not understand how it affects somebody else, because how your anxiety is maybe very different from me.
Yeah.
And so I could sit here and be like, oh, I'm having an anxiety attack, and you could try to help me in ways that help you, and that could just make everything worse for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or talking to someone who has never experienced any anxiety or mental illness. Because for me, it's ruined plenty of relationships. Plenty of them. And just being able to talk about it and be open about it and educate other people so that you can build your support system, that's a really, really, really big thing. And sometimes some people just can't deal with it. Like, I've had people literally tell me, you're crazy, I cannot have you in my life. I've had people tell me, I'm done, you're crazy, because I had a mental breakdown and cried and said that I didn't want to be alive, and then them never speak to me again. That has happened. It's happened between me and some of my closest friends. Yes. And sometimes that's pretty tough, and you just have to keep going. One of the things I have to remind myself, like, I have all these people around me that truly love me, and I have to stick with them. Not the people that I think are super cool and have the perfect life. Nobody has a perfect life. Everybody's struggling with something. Sometimes people think I have a perfect life. Step inside my bedroom, you'll see that it's a hot mess in there. Abby was in there yesterday. Couldn't even walk through it. Like, because I do try to present myself as very put together. On the inside, I'm a hot mess. Half the time on the outside, I'm a hot mess. So just, my advice, you do you.
Okay,
It
well,
is what it is.
thank you for coming and talking with us today. I really appreciate it. That's going to be it for today. So we'll see you next time.